Welcome to Mars. This is Lanzarote, the maze of craters and desert and wind, of course. Lanzarote has an area of 845 square kilometers, and it's 60 kilometers long, so it's not a big island. And it's easy to hike around it or cross it. It's actually perfect for that, if you don't mind the wastelands. There are no rivers, no water, basically no plants. And the volcanic origin of this island is over 15 million years old. And about 300 years ago, there was a total apocalypse here. Basically, quarter of the land of Lanzarote was covered by lava due to many big eruptions, volcanic eruptions. And also Lanzarote gained 200 square kilometers of land by that. So basically 300 years ago the whole island was reshaped, which is amazing. You are basically on a new island. Thanks to that, it was even added to the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve, and the island is basically a chain of craters and corridors between them, which are super sharp. And this is sand, but on most of the island there is not sand like this. They are just very sharp rocks, and that makes it very unique comparing to other Canary Islands. Because of that, even when the island is quite small, the map will confuse you. Those distances, they are short, but because everything is sharp and those paths are difficult, it will slow you down a lot. So don't expect that you will cover long distances here. I did actually, and it wasn't a good idea. The original inhabitants conquered this island about 600 years ago, and the pirates were trying to get it until till 18th century. So there was a lot of fighting, and in the end it ended up being Spanish land, although there is Africa literally few dozens of kilometers from here. So geographically this is definitely Africa, as you can see, but politically it's Spain. And in 1730 there were very huge eruptions here, which they were like 30 plus volcanoes erupting at the same time, which buried many villages, and it, like I said, it reshaped the whole island, and it caused the mass emigration. What's nice is that Cesar Manrique, after these eruptions and reshaping the island, he decided that the whole architecture here will be consistent, so there are no high buildings like, for example, on Tenerife or Gran Canaria. And the architecture is the same. Everything, all the houses are white, and it's sort of art, which is very nice because they didn't want to screw it up like on the other Canaries due to mass tourism. This is not a small island comparing to others, but it's not as touristic, or at least it doesn't feel as touristic. And due to this landscape, there were actually many movies filmed here, and even NASA was training here, the pilots, because it looks like Mars on some places here. There are 160,000 locals living here, which is close to Fuerteventura, but not as much as Tenerife or Gran Canaria. There are nearly 1 million people living. On the other hand, El Hierro, which is another Canary island, has less than 11,000 people locals living there. And La Gomera, for example, 22,000. So the differences are big, and you can feel it when you come. Still, there are around 3 million of tourists each year here, which is half than Tenerife and way less than Gran Canaria, but way more than, for example, El Hierro, where they are just 20 or 22,000 of tourists each year. What's nice here is that most people are living in Arrecife, which is the capital, if you can say that, here, and a few bigger cities, basically on the south. And the rest are just smaller villages or very small towns. If you avoid those bigger cities, you would see a completely different island, a completely different people, the completely different atmosphere and vibe and feeling. Because in Arrecife there is really, it's a big city, there are big roads, many cars, a lot of noises. And in those smaller towns, it's like there is 1-2 restaurants, and that's it. And many big areas, plains like this. I didn't see or haven't seen any resorts or not like in construction resorts like on other Canary Islands. It looks here that time stopped, basically. But still, for the locals, tourism is the main economical thing here. They wouldn't survive without it. So it's still aimed for tourists, but mostly on those bigger resorts. Outside of them, what I was surprised, or I knew about this because I was here before, but for the first time I was surprised that it's very tourism friendly. So for example, on some places there are big areas for vans, usually by the coasts, where you can just park there for free and be there as long as you want. And they are, when you are walking by those coasts, you see people camping there in their vans, maybe even weeks, and nobody has problems with it. On Fuerteventura, it's actually even better. There are more of them, but still, this is absolutely amazing if you have a van, or if you just want to travel by yourself and sleep in nature. This is a good place for that, because nobody will complain. Of course, I will talk about camping later. It's not that black and white, but it's much nicer than on, for example, Tenerife or Gran Canaria, and not even comparing it with our Europe. For example, I don't know, Croatia, Spain. It's incomparable, totally incomparable. In those bigger resorts and big cities, or there is one big city basically, but in those bigger towns, people always speak English, but in smaller towns, no. And in restaurants, you have to talk with your hands or use a translator, because this is like really 90% or 95% of tourists are in those bigger resorts far from these remote areas. So be prepared that your English won't be useful on some places here. When you need a transport around this island, you have a few options. There are bus lines through the most important parts, so basically you can take a bus. If you are everywhere on the island, it's just a few kilometers to a nearest bus stop. So you can use buses. They are usually going in 2 hours sections, so when you miss one, you need to wait for 2 hours. And the cost is €1.50 to €10, depends on the distance. I had actually one bad experience that I was on the bus stop, but it looked like a bus stop. It was the same like a bus stop, but the sign was a little bit farther on the same place, which looked completely the same. And the driver didn't stop. He was seeing me, and I was just waving on him, and he just pointed 10 meters farther and said that's the bus stop, and just rode through and didn't stop. So yeah, but you need to be careful, and you can use buses. Also, what you can use are taxis. I used a taxi from the airport to the place where I started the hike, which was, I think, around 20 kilometers, I'm not sure. And it cost me around 30 euros. The good thing is that they are highly regulated, those taxis here, so they are not overpriced, and nobody can, cheat or be a cash grab like in some bigger cities in our Europe, where you can get charged 10 times more than is usual. It doesn't happen here. They have a electronic device, and you can see how it's counting kilometers and the price. You see the price in real time, how much you pay for the distance you drove. And they can't have different prices. So the government here, they set up the price for a kilometer, and that's it. You are sure that you will pay that price. If you count your distance beforehand, you know how much you will pay. There is some extra charge, for example, I think 2 euros for picking up at the airport, but it's not an issue. On the other hand, there is no Uber, no Bolt, no these alternative services, which are usually much cheaper than taxis. They are forbidden on all the Canaries, so you can't use that. What you can use actually is hitchhiking, which works really well here. I hitchhiked twice because I was going to the civilization for lunch and back. And yeah, once I was waiting for like 1 hour. Once I walked, 6 kilometers and nobody stopped. But twice they stopped in like 5 minutes. And we had a nice chat with the locals. So you can use a hitchhiking, or you can just walk. Like, everything is close here. If you check the map and you use the used public trails, it's easy to walk everywhere. It's close to the nearest town. It's just a few kilometers always. Just don't use the non-public trails or paths which are in maps. I will get back to it later. I got burned a lot. I got burned so much that yeah, don't trust maps here. Definitely, if you want to hike this island outside of those main trails here, those which are numbered or named. You can also use ferries here to the nearest islands, which mean not only La Graciosa, which is teeny tiny island on the north, but you can also go to Fuerteventura or Gran Canaria by a ferry, which many people do. So you can just fly to any island you pick, and then you can take a ferry to another one, and you can just ferry hop through one island to another one between Tenerife, Gran Canaria, Lanzarote, Fuerteventura. Easy peasy, and it's not that expensive. What I don't like is that they charge local people half of the price or even less for all these things, which I don't think is legal in Europe. In European Union, I think there should be some rule, or there is some rule that locals can't be charged less, but for some reason it works like that in Canary Islands. So if you would be living here, it's extremely cheap to traverse the islands back and forth from one to another one. For tourists it's more expensive, but you are not here for long usually, so it's not an issue. And due to this volcanic landscape and desert, there are not that many animals as you would expect. So there are some goats, there are many, or not many, here and there you see a lizard and some bugs, but I think that's it. There are vultures and some birds. There are imported camels actually here, but apart of that, it's a wasteland without life, which you can see. They are manta rays and sharks in the ocean here. It's Atlantic Ocean actually. And that's it. What's the really good thing on Canary Islands is that there are no mosquitoes, or they are extremely rare. I've seen some yesterday actually on my sleeping spot, but they didn't bother even come close to me. So you don't need to use repellent, you don't need to use a tent because of this weather. There is very rarely raining here. So at least no mosquitoes, just a lot of wind, as you probably can hear, and a lot of sun, which also means very little shade. On some places there is no shade at all. You just walk on the straight sun. From my experiences, the sun here is not that strong, so it's hard to get burned, at least for me. It just get dark, and I never use sunscreen. But mainly it's because it's winter, it's December actually. Which reminds me that I came from Central Europe, where we hadn't had any sun for weeks actually. For weeks there was zero sun. Weeks and weeks without sun. You come here and you have sun all day long basically, which is amazing. And the temperatures are great here now in December and January. There is like 22, 25 degrees, but it doesn't feel hot because of the wind. So that's great. And the sea or the ocean, it's I think 19 degrees. I was swimming and it's easy, like it's not cold. It's like a little bit chilly, but not cold that it would feel bad. No, it's awesome for swimming. So you can swim here all year long and you can be here all year long. And the weather is basically constant through the year. It's more hot during the summer, but not much more. And when it comes for rains, there are usually maybe 1-2 rainy days per month. But rainy day here means 1 hour of little bit of rain, like one shower, and it's not even hard rain, it's like literally few drops. So perfect weather not only for winter but for any time. As I said, I was here already 2022 and I hiked a big part of the official trail GR131. And this trail, GR131, is going through all the Canaries, all 7 bigger islands. And I hiked that one, but made some detours because it's boring. Like GR131 is literally boring trail, missing the best places on all the Canaries. It misses Teide on Tenerife, it misses Roque Nublo on Gran Canaria, it misses Cofete on Fuerteventura, it misses Montaña Blanca here, the biggest crater on Lanzarote. It literally misses the best places. So I hiked it last 2 or 3 years ago with some detours to some better places. And this time I wanted something different, so I hiked basically around the island, more like coastal hike, which was partly a very good idea because it's so remote and there is nobody and it's pure and raw, the experience to be off the public trails. On the other hand, I will get to it later, but I got burnt a few times, a lot. So this is my actually 7th visit of the Canaries and second one of Lanzarote. And my friend just recently came from Lanzarote and he said he couldn't stand it. Hi Dominic, if you are watching, he walked part of it. He wanted to hike across the island and he gave up and moved to another Canary island because he said this is so boring. There is nothing here, there is just wasteland, there is it's a boring place to be, what he said. But I think that it's actually amazing that this is a good thing But it really depends what you like. If you like variety, if you like islands, if you're not islands, mountains and big views, you won't find it here. You could be really bored. So, but if you like solitude and remoteness and this emptiness, this island and Fuerteventura will definitely knock you on your feet, because it's just pure freedom here and remoteness. If you want to walk the GR131, it's very easy. You check the maps and you are going basically through the middle of the island, and it's not an issue. But if you want to hike what I did, which was mostly on the remote places, you need much more planning, because some of those areas are totally remote, far from civilization, and very rocky. The paths are hard to see, literally non-existent, or they are just marked by few stones. Some are very difficult, like a lava field around El Golfo. And sometimes you can even tell you that there is some local path or even official trail, and it's not there. And I had two really bad experiences. One is a 15-kilometer long path from El Golfo to Montaña Blanca. It's a natural reserve, and I decided to walk through it because there is a path in the maps by the coast, and it looked very remote, which it was. But what maps didn't say was that it's a pure lava there. Everything is black and sharp like this, but with no sand, just rocks. And you are walking on rocks for 15 kilometers, and it's wobbly and sharp. You destroy your shoes basically. The map usually predicts you the length of the distance you want to, the time, how much it will take you. And it told me that it will be 3.5 hours. I hiked it for 6 hours and I was totally done. I was hiking and in the end in the night, because I just didn't make those 15 kilometers as quickly as the map showed. It was very difficult. Sometimes you couldn't see the path. You were just going blindly through the lava field. And second one was Risco de Famara. It's a trail which connects Famara, the famous village with a very beautiful beach, with El Risco, which is a beach on the northwest side of the island. This was supposed to be connected by a trail, which is even called, and it's marked as an official trail by the cliff. Basically, this is the cliff, and it was through the middle of the cliff. There should be a road, official trail, which is like 6 or 8 kilometers long, I think. And there were many little landslides which you could walk over. But in the middle of the trail, which means basically after 4 kilometers in the middle, there was a huge landslide, which made a hole through the cliff, and there was a 200 meters drop. And there was no way to get over that. You would just die, and there was no signal, and there is nothing. So I was walking 4 kilometers there and 4 kilometers back. I made 8 kilometers long detour. Was totally tired and exhausted from that, because I had to go through those many small landslides again. That's what I want to say, is that be careful when you are hiking here, and check everything, double check everything. And even if I tried, I found no informations about the Risco de Famara. I found nothing through AI, through Google, through forums, through maps, nothing. Like, there is just trail marked in the maps, and that's it, and you have to go there. So a lot of, and it cost me 1 day of hiking basically, and I couldn't reach that El Risco beach, which is also accessible from the other side, from the top of the cliff, with 400 meters of elevation drop, but I wouldn't make it in time, so I had to skip it and leave it for another time. Considering all this, what I'm saying is, what you really need are good shoes, because you don't want to destroy your and these trails and this landscape and this lava. This is lava, you know. This is pure lava, and here is at least some sand, but somewhere there is no sand. There is just this, and you walk all the time on these black, sharp lava stones, and it's going through your shoes, and you don't want to destroy them in half and then be few kilometers from the closest civilization. That would be totally screwed up. So take a good shoes, and also be prepared that you will lose a lot of their grip here. You will just use them up on these trails, on these sharp paths. Or maybe take a spare ones, I don't know, but be prepared for that. You need the good shoes, or shoes in good shape, not just some which you will think that you just use them here and throw away because they are nearly done. No, you will destroy them very quickly here. Take a new ones, or some which have enough grip to get burned here. When it comes to restocking on this island, as I said, there are many villages spread it around the island, and most of them are small, but in most of them you will get some water. There is no natural source of water here, obviously. On this island there are no rivers, no lakes, no nothing, so don't even take a filter, you don't need it here. The only water you can get is through shops, basically, or restaurants. But tap water is drinkable here. They are using desalination, they are desalting the ocean here, which brings not very pleasant taste to the tap water, but it's drinkable. It has no health issue. It doesn't bring any health issues, nothing. It just doesn't taste very well. And also in some villages there are no shops. They are just maybe one or two restaurants, and sometimes they are not even open. Like today I went to one village and there was just only one restaurant, and there was written closed on Wednesdays. So have some backup options and take a lot of water. Also due to the sun. Today is actually the first cloudy day for the whole time I was here. It was totally sunny with 0 clouds and super hot, and you need a lot of water. I took 4 liters of water for those few days each day. It wasn't enough. I think 6 liters would be much better. I felt dehydrated, my urine was very yellow, and I felt it that it's not enough, those 4 liters. So definitely take a lot of water and take electrolytes with you to replace sodium, because you will lose a lot of sodium on this heat in those long distances. On the other hand, what's nice is that even in the smallest villages here, they take a card. You don't have to have cash. Like, I would recommend to have some cash as a spare option, but I paid on many places, restaurants, bars or shops, and even in taxi I could pay by card, no problem with that. With English it was worse, but it changed. I remember 3 years ago there were some places when I was here which didn't accept cash, card, only cash, and now 3 years later everyone everywhere accept cash, even the smallest pubs and local bars. When you plan to hike around this island and sleep outside, as I am doing, beware that wild camping is forbidden here. And by wild camping, it means that you can't set up a tent or any structure here. That's forbidden, it's not allowed. On all the Canaries, some hikers are not respecting that. They are setting up tents somewhere. They said that it's tolerated, it's a gray zone maybe, but I think it's not even needed, you know, on Lanzarote. There is very little rain, there is just wind, and you should find a place which is covered from the wind. It's not even an issue, the wind itself, it's just less comfortable to sleep in it, but it's not any problem. But bivouacking is is very highly tolerated here. I was seen a few times and people just said good morning, no problems with that. Just one thing is avoid natural parks for this, because there are some natural parks, and in those natural parks it's forbidden to even bivouac. And bivouacking means just putting a ground sheet on the ground and sleeping on the sleeping mat. That's tolerated, but you shouldn't do it in natural parks because of that protected nature there. Apart from that, easy peasy. I slept by a fisherman's hut, and some women came. She wasn't very happy about that. She said that it's her friend, and in the end I said I'm hiking around the island, I'm not doing any damage, everything will be as I came when I will leave. And she said enjoy, but she wasn't happy about that, but didn't call any authorities, didn't make any problems. It's nice on all the Canary Islands when in terms of bivouacking, sleeping under the stars. Not only it's tolerated, but also it's just nice because of the weather, and you can watch stars and galaxies and Milky Way, and it's just beautiful to watch falling stars for hours. And because it's winter, the days are relatively short. The sunrise is around 7:30 and sunset is before 6. So it's 10 hours of sunlight. Basically, in the summer it will be like 14 probably. So you have shorter time frame for walking each day. On the other hand, you have much more sleep, which is amazing. If you are coming here to Lanzarote, I highly recommend to visit La Graciosa, which is another teeny tiny island on the north. You can get a ferry. You can get there by a ferry only. It's a very nice island. You can hike around. I was there 3 years ago, and they are beautiful sandy beaches, and it's remote. There is basically one very little village with few houses, and that's it. And the rest of the island is remote. Unfortunately, the last 2 years until now, it's forbidden to wild camp here in any way, even bivouacking, because it's a natural reserve. There was a camping spot there which you could book for free, and in that one spot you could bivouac or even set up a tent. But they stopped this 2 years ago, or at COVID time, so few years ago they stopped this possibility, and now you can't. So that's a pity, because you have to go there, hike around, and go back by a ferry. If I can recommend other places, there is a very nice green lake by El Golfo. It's a very touristic place. Everyone is going there for an Instagram picture, but it's a very unique place. You can't find anything like that on other Canaries or anywhere else. There is also a very nice cactus garden here on the east coast. It's like a botanical garden, but there are only cactuses, nothing else, and some of them are like 5 meters big. Amazing place. Also, there is a very, very nice place. It's like a chamber of death, which is Playa Quemera. And from there you have to hike for like 3 kilometers by the coast. Or you can hike down from Femes, which is also like 5 kilometers. And there is a cave. And I call it Cave of the Dead because there are many memories. And people are bringing their toys of their loved ones and pictures and things which remind them the people they passed away, or animals which passed away. And it's a very nice place, and it's so remote that you just can't get there in any way just by walking a few kilometers there and a few kilometers back. But it's one of the most unique places on all the Canaries, and It's it's my favorite place on all the Canaries, definitely. I slept there actually the first night. It's magic, it's absolutely magical place. And I highly recommend to pay a visit, that little cave. If you want to know more about my hiking experience here, definitely check out the member section on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. I'm putting there very detailed maps with each day parts. So it's shown there where I started, where I finished, where I was sleeping. I marked bivouac spots and camping spots and shops and places of interest and roads and many things. Under the video you can find just my route in the member section. You can find very detailed maps, and not only for Lanzarote but also for all my hikes, including all the other Canary Islands, plus many photos, plus many live videos. I'm posting live videos from my hikes for members, so check that out if you are planning to hike not only Lanzarote but also on the other Canary Islands. That's it. My next plan is actually surprisingly another Canary Island, and that's La Gomera in February. And after La Gomera I will have all the Canary Islands hiked through around all the ways, some of them twice, even like Gran Canaria on Lanzarote. And this is like my second home, the Canaries, yeah. So after finishing this one, going home, and then my next hike is La Gomera. And the last one, which will be remaining for me, probably for the end of the next year, is La Palma. So see you on another hike.